good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you. I am your host du jour, or de rigueur, as the case may be, the one and only Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you loud and clear and live from an undisclosed location somewhere. We have audio issues. Hang on a second. Are we back? Yes, we are. Okay. I'm having microphone problems. I know some of you guys could hear me, but my mic is starting to fail me, I fear. But anyway, hello, hi, how are you guys? I'm glad you're all here. Um, Welcome to the show, and let me just say something. Welcome back to a certain subset of the audience. Let me say welcome back to a certain subset of the audience because guess what? I have switched back on the streaming to Facebook. So we are now streaming over to our friends on Facebook. And if you're watching on Facebook, if you're over on Facebook watching this, and you're probably not, leave a comment down below in the live chat or whatever it is that Facebook does. I want to see if it shows up over here or if I'm going to have to monitor Facebook chat separately. But anyhow, welcome. And let me tell you something. If you've just arrived, if the winds of entertainment have blown you this way, let me tell you, we have a lot of fun stuff around here. So if you want to know more and you want to find out and you want to participate and you want to be part of it, and you're like, hey, how can I join this crazy community that appears to have just sprung up from the very rich soil itself? Do me a favor, and if you're not over here on YouTube, click come over here. If you're already over here but you haven't yet, click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications, and you'll find out when all of this fun stuff is bound to go down. So that is the best thing that you can do, and it would be Tress Awesome, which of course, as we all know, is 3 awesomes, and that's more than one. But anyhow, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're watching here on YouTube, whether you're watching over there on Twitter, welcome to City 17. It's safer here. But anyhow, and yes, Rob Turner, you are right. Likes are free. You can click the like button. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up down in the live section there, or down in the thumbs up section there, even if the video's live. That's what I meant to say. So let me tell you a little bit about what we do. 5 nights a week, live stream about classic TTRPGs. I do my best to answer your questions about those topics that are important. I like to bring you history, mystery, a little bit of twistery. I don't know what twistery is. I just needed something to rhyme. Stop yelling at me. But it's guests, it's live plays, it's deep dives, it's reviews, it's all of that stuff. 33K7, good to see you. How are you? Glad you're over there, holding down the X tip. So anyway, Wheeling Dragon, hello, good to see you. Let me get my hellos out of my system and say hello to Finn Fish, the Dungeon Minister. He'll come up in conversation again here in just a few minutes. Who else is out there? Cyrus Wright, north of the Rockies. Rob Turner, Damien247, Damien X247, Derek Mann. He's out there, Derek Mann. Vinny Finnegan, Robert Phillips. Um, so anyway, thank you. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining. Wonderful Wizards of Game. TDU2, my friend. You haven't been here since December. How are we doing? We're doing great. We've missed you. We've missed you. I saved you a seat. It's right next to Dungeon Minister. Don't stand there in the back. Come in. Have a seat. But anyway, it's less ads over here than you. Hey, 33K7, I completely understand. Wherever you're at, wherever you be, have fun. Have I ever used a wand of wonder? Yes, I had one show up in a game that I was DMing once. It came in a treasure pile, and the party, they summoned an angry rhino. They shrank themselves. They made grass grow on everything. They shot out a swarm of butterflies and a stream of gems. And it was actually the stream of gems that nearly killed a character that made them stop experimenting with it and sell it. You want to have some fun? Package a Wand of Wonder in the same box as a deck of many things. But anyway, oh yes. So the first thing I want to bring up today, well, first let's talk about the week ahead. Tomorrow night, bag of beans, good call, Daniel. Tomorrow night we are going to be playing some first edition AD&D. Now, what does that mean? Maybe you're new here and you don't quite, you're like, oh, okay, what is that? What exactly does that entail? Well, it's not like a rehearsed thing. We're playing first edition AD&D. You guys are welcome to watch, but here's the thing. I don't just want you to watch. If you have a question about what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, when we're doing it, where we're doing it, who we're doing it with, any of those important questions, I would like you to ask in the live chat. I want you to ask. I want you to feel like it is a learning experience. It started. It began as an example of play when once upon a time I did my How to Play First Edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons series on YouTube, which I don't like to brag, but literally tens of people have watched. I know. It's hard to believe, isn't it? Definitely hard to believe. But anyway, so I want you to feel like you can ask. If I don't answer it, someone in the game might answer. And if someone in the game doesn't answer it, someone out in the audience might answer. Because guys, look, I will kill on this hill. Jeff, the greatest dungeon master alive. Hello. I have the smartest and the best looking audience of all 5 night a week classic TTRPG live stream shows on YouTube. I'll kill on that hill. All right. Find me somebody who can challenge me on that. You can't. So, at any rate, yes. So that is what we do Tuesday night. This coming Wednesday night, we're going to have an open, free-for-all kind of fun evening. Kyle will hopefully be back in a couple of more weeks. And Kyle runs a ruthless AD&D game on Wednesday nights. We quite enjoy it. And I play. Like, I just sit back and play. He runs the games. Thursday night, sometimes we have guests. This week, no guest. but we will have fun. And then Friday night, you can't miss Friday night, because Friday night, just like we've played AD&D, we're playing Gamma World on Friday night. And I hope you guys will be there to watch us play Gamma World on Friday night. So tune in and enjoy. So that is our week ahead. And if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to ask. You guys can ask me just about anything, and I'll answer it. My answer may be, I'm not going to tell you that, but you will get an answer. I did hear about that wonderful Wizard of Games. I did. Orbital Air, good to see you. Now let's talk TTRPG news a little bit, shall we? Yeah. I think we're gonna talk some TTRPG news. Have I ever thought of running a Boot Hill session? I would have to reacquire the Boot Hill rules. I'll never say never. I'll never say never. But anyway, so you may have heard me talk. Actually, no, we're not going to go into GUOGC details. Sorry, TTRPG news. So a couple of things have come up this week. Both of them, as far as I'm concerned, are non-issues. Now look, I could have drama farmed these. I could have tried to tie these in some ephemeral way into classic Dungeons and Dragons. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to yell about things just to yell about things, because neither one of them impacts classic D&D. Let me tell you something. When I started seeing how awful the output from Lucas was about how Star Wars is now, I just stopped ignoring it. Or I just stopped watching it. I ignored it. My Star Wars is encapsulated in 3 films and a handful of books and the Marvel run of comic books. The end. That's it. I don't give a damn about anything. Actually, to be fair, to be 100% fair, I liked Gendy Tartakovsky's Clone War cartoons, and I liked Rogue One. Those are pretty good. But I don't care about, other than to point and mock, about anything after that. Anything. So I'm done tying myself in knots about it. There's no, they can't reach into the past and destroy my Laserdisc box set, which is sitting up over there. Or even my DVDs, which are sitting on a shelf out in the den. Yeah, you're right, Damien. I agree with you. So I don't get up in arms over it. Because Star Wars, 1977, Empire in 80, Jedi in 82, they're fine. They're absolutely fine. Nothing has changed about them. Okay? Well, now they say Luke is a this. Now they say Han did that. The other. Just ignore those. They're bad fan fiction. They weren't created by George Lucas. Therefore, they're bad fan fiction. Yes, I can see you over there, Big Yehuda. I can see Twitter chat. Yes, I see you, Yehuda. Now, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Orcs have been removed from the monster manual in 6th edition D&D. They're no longer monsters. There have been a lot of videos about this. There's been a lot of press about this. Orcs have been completely removed. They're no longer monsters. I think it's wrong. I think it's dumb. I think it's stupid. I think they're shitting up their own game, but they're shitting up their game. When they released the 6th edition monster manual, my monster manual didn't disappear. The 2 orc tribes in Keep on the Borderlands, the ink didn't fade off the paper. All right. That's not D&D as I know it. They can run it into the ground. Honestly, the quicker they give up on tabletop RPG stuff, the happier I'll be. They're monsters. They are monsters. Now, if somebody who came in through 6th edition D&D comes into my game and they're like, wait a minute, a tribe of orcs is attacking the village. Oh, that's a little problematic. I'm going to say, hey, look, this is how D&D works. Because I've got 50 years. Yes, even 5th edition. I've got 50 years of orc as monster. I will be cold clay before people forget that orcs are monsters. If you play new D&D, 6th edition, if you're just like, look, I got to follow the edition Death March. I got to buy every new rule set when it comes out. I've been playing since OD&D. I got to buy the new one. I got to play it. Just put them back in. Just put them back in. There's a reason, Lightmane. I can't really go into it right now. Yes, Wonderful Wizard of Games. That's the way you do it. I looked to see if I could find a single article. Not that there weren't multiple articles. I'm just saying I went to see, hey, is there an article out there that is that can just kind of sum everything up? And I thought, Wizards of the Coast removes orcs from D&D. And there are already videos on it. There are Reddit posts, Substack. Rob went off on them about it. And that's another thing. That's another thing. Better brains than mine have already weighed in on this. Better spoken people have already said their piece. You don't get any more authoritative about the bones of Dungeons and Dragons than Rob. Than Rob Kuntz. And honestly, I think the best thing I could say about it is just to share what he said. They're now a species and in the player's handbook, from what I understand. Orcs, born of Tolkien, understood to be specially tortured and chained elves and mutated life forms, born for pure evil purposes by wizardry and monsters in kind, have now been added to civil society as just another species occurring in the evolutionary chain. They were misunderstood all along, you see, and it is now your fault to not recognize that they are slipping a blade into you. Utter drivel. Creative hackery at its best. A literary appropriation and postmodern obliteration of Tolkien's work and efforts now made a mockery of on the world stage. I couldn't have said that better myself. I could not have said that better myself. Rob said it better than me. Lots of people said it better than me. But that's the news. If you care about new D&D, be mad about it. I love old D&D, and they never changed. The only slight change was in 4E, they made them chaotic evil. But in 5E, they came back to being lawful evil. They are listed as chaotic in original D&D, and the various flavors of basic, excepting Holmes Basic, which did have a 5 alignment axis system, as opposed to the 3 alignment axis system of basic, and then Moldvay Basic, Mentor Basic, then Expert, Companion, Mini-series, and Indigestion. I think those are the last two. No, I'm a 9 alignments guy, Finn. I've always loved the nuance. So, they're ruining their own game. But that game is not Dungeons and Dragons. Tim kind of gets on me a little bit about this in a friendly way. But guys, I'm going to tell you, this game that they have has drifted so far away from this is a tectonic shift in a bad way, like 4E was. I personally think they're going to scramble and correct back with 7th edition. I think maybe even like, okay, here's an optional template to use them as a monster again, and then people will just do that and move on. The Spawner says orcs are popular and became a race, so why them in the? I think why have them or put them in the monster manual? Because the Spawner. Let me tell you something, bud. Let me tell you something. I'm not getting in your grill, and I'm not calling you out, because that's not what we do here. This is a valid question. I want to show you something. I want to share something with you. Let me just pop this open. That is a good question that deserves a good answer. So we're going to look at the first edition AD&D Monster Manual. And if you've got one, you can follow along. But I'm not going to go into each entry. I am going to pop the table of contents open. And we're going to start here. Dwarves are in the monster manual, right there. Elves are in the monster manual. Gnomes are in the monster manual. Halflings are in the monster manual. And men, humans, are in the monster manual. Oh, and by the way, just to hop over here, half orcs are in the monster manual. All are playable races. All of them are playable races. They have entries in the monster manual because, and let me share this with you, this is important, and again, it shows that the people at Wizards of the Coast did no homework. They get an F, they get an incomplete. The term monster is used throughout this work in two manners. Its first and most important meaning is to designate any creature encountered, hostile or otherwise, human, humanoid, or beast. Until the encountering party determines what they have come upon, it is a monster. The secondary usage of the term is in the usual sense a horrible or wicked creature of some sort. Thus, a monster is encountered during the course of a dungeon expedition, and it is discovered to be an evil high priest who just might turn out to be a monster in the other sense as well. Note, however, that despite this terminology, humans and kin such as dwarves, elves, gnomes, half-elves, and halflings always use the matrix for humans when attacking, even if such humans were encountered as monsters in the course of an adventure. That's just a little bit of nuts and bolts stuff. They are literally kneecapping their future DMs. Again, from the start, men, elves, dwarves, halflings, half-elves, half-orcs, gnomes, all were things that you could encounter in a dungeon and might be hostile. They have had a stick up their asses about orcs for the past few years. And I know why, but I can't say why, or I'll get in trouble with YouTube. Exactly, the spawner. Make men monsters again. Make orcs monsters again. If the flump are monsters, then so are orcs. And flumps, I think, should be on the kill list, just like Kender should. They're horrible and stupid. Thank you, Damien. I happen to agree with you. I never liked the barbarian class. All I can say is if I was a person of color and someone showed me a picture of an orc in a monster manual and said, look, that's you, doesn't that upset you? I would punch them. I would do violence to them. By the way, Damien, the phrase is, I would kill on the hill. Don't die on the hill. Make somebody else die on the hill. Anyway. But that's my rant about it. Rob said it better than me. Other people have covered it. It doesn't affect AD&D. It doesn't affect OD&D. It doesn't affect Holmes Basic. It doesn't affect Bakersfield Electricity, Motown, cough medicine, Iridium version of D&D. Could I go into the nuance I mentioned about the 9 axes? Yeah, Finn, I saw that there. You asked, I'll answer. I prefer the idea of adhering to law, chaos, or neutrality being a spectrum of alignments that dictate your mores and your ethos more than just saying, well, he's chaotic. Does that mean that him and a red dragon are down to hang out? No. Okay, well, how do we make that distinction? Well, he's chaotic, but he's good. So he's chaotic good. You see. Plus, it gives neutral evil, neutral good, lawful neutrality, and chaotic neutrality, which I think are very important alignments too. No. Rob, not in the time we have tonight. I tell you what, if you guys want a real in-depth discussion of alignment, I've done them before. I'll talk about it on Wednesday. Just put a sticky note on your computer, make a Microsoft Notes on your phone, and get back to me on Wednesday if you want an in-depth dive on alignments, because I don't have enough time. I've actually in less than an hour I got my Monday night AD&D game to go to. So so anyhow, moving right along. I will, Robert. I will. I think that's a good question. Like I said, just just take it out of your pocket on Wednesday and say, "Hey, Bill, you were going to do this. Please do." And we'll proceed apace, as Gary said. Now, next order of business, next piece of RPG news. Again, not something that super impacts us. But I did want to mention this. And I want to mention it because, again, this is not something that super impacts us. But maybe you are a computer gamer and this will impact you. A Scrum Knuckle, yeah, sure. I mean, if your DM does evil aligns in his campaign for players, absolutely lawful evil. You can even be good lawful evil, but we'll leave that for another discussion. Now, Dragon Age the Veilguard, of course, was the last, and I do mean last, Dragon Age game. The director of the game, first of all, let's pump the brakes a little bit. If you don't know Dragon Age, it started out as kind of a grim, dark fantasy setting about 10, 12 years back. I actually have somewhere around here, I bought and paid for the Dragon Age tabletop RPG, or at least the first boxed set. I bought it in PDF. But yeah, so the games went through a lot of iterations. I had always had them on my list of I really should play the Dragon Age games. I may even have them in my Steam account. I've just never gotten around to them. The last the last game was pretty reviled. Now, BioWare, or the company that owns BioWare, says that the game had 1.5 million engagements and they were expecting 3 million sales, but it still had 1.5 million engagements. So technically it was a loss. Guys, let me tell you, 1.5 million engagements. Let me tell you something. Right now, if I look at the little eye icon on my control panel for StreamYard, it shows 116 people. There are not 116 people watching. There are probably 30 or 40 of you. 90 people have watched on, or 90 people have hovered over this live stream as they scroll through Twitter. Bots, people I know, people I don't know, have watched for 3 seconds. That counts as a view, and Twitter/X reports it as such. But I promise you, there are not 90, now 91 people watching live on Twitter. I would love it if there were. If there are 91 of you out there sitting there hanging on my every word, please, please, please hop into the chat and say hi. I would love to hear from you. So when BioWare, whoever, says that they got 1.5 million impressions, that includes press versions. That includes people who bought it, played it for less than 2 hours, and refunded it. That includes people who played a demo of it. There were not 1.5 million people who bought this. There are a number of people who were really pissed off with the characterizations in this game and the direction that the story took, and people pissed off at the gameplay. I heard more rants about the gameplay, about it being dumbed down into like something that looked and played like a mobile game, like something from 2014 that you would play on your iPhone, where you just kind of slide and tap randomly to cause spells and arrows to go out and do combo attacks and that sort of thing. Chris Kane, how are you? Good to see you. It was a bomb. The game was an abject failure, and it cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make. What has this got to do with D&D other than its fantasy? The person who headed it up, Corinne Bush, has been hired by Wizards of the Coast. Now, as far as I know, nothing she does will inform Dungeons and Dragons. She is going to their Skeleton Key Studios to work on video games for Wizards of the Coast. Because you will remember that despite the fact that Baldur's Gate 3 was a runaway success of a video game. Look, I don't care if you didn't like it or hated it. Oh, that's terrible, Damien. That's terrible. Despite that fact, Wizards of the Coast severed their ties. They laid off most of their staff that interfaced with Larian, and then Larian and Wizards of the Coast went their separate ways. Amiable divorce, if you will. So there'll never be any Baldur's Gate 3 DLC. There'll never be a Baldur's Gate 4 by Larian. Again, regardless of what you think about Baldur's Gate 3, it was a huge, huge, huge success. Part of that success was that it was a damn good game to play. Yeah, I'm an old school Wizardry fan too, Robert. Dragon Age Origin put other things in front of good gameplay. They prioritized certain parts of the story over others. And the result of this is that the game bombed. How can I say this? Poule de bave. If you understood that reference, you have my sympathies. So it was not well received by the people it targeted. If that is the direction that Corinne Bush wishes to take D&D themed video games for Wizards of the Coast, Wizards of the Coast is in a lot of trouble. Now, I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds here. First of all, I'm going to remove this because I see this character And this is true of all of this character style. I just want to grab those horns and snap them off. Tieflings, whatever. I just like, I'm horrible. Um, so AAA gaming, and what do I mean by AAA gaming? I'm talking about games with multi-hundred millions of dollars of development budgets that bring in Hollywood levels of talent on voice acting, mocap, technology used, that sort of thing. We're at the point now where a video game has to make $1 billion profit for a studio like BioWare or Ubisoft or whoever. It's happened in the last decade or two. It's awful. Used to be, nobody knows what American McGee or Tom Hall or John Romero or John Carmack or Sandy Peterson thought about the weather or the time of day or who shot John. And nobody cared. We just played the games and had fun. And that's the simple truth. But these various game studios have pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed particular narratives to the point that in their attempt to make quote unquote broad appeal, they have to make a statement with everything. And these statements are hanging on games that cost billions of dollars to make or hundreds of millions of dollars to make and have to make billions of dollars in income. And the result of that bloat is stuff that's really not good. It's really not fun. And the evidence is in the death of things like the Dragon Age, the Veilguard. I mean, they pursued a tiny agenda all the way down the drain and dragged their profits with them. And so there, there we are. And she wants to bring that, or I should say, Wizards of the Coast wants to bring the person who did that in to make D&D games. I don't think it's going to work out well for them. If she proceeds with that same mindset, I just don't see how Wizards of the Coast could survive a game that they spend $500 million on that only engages with 1.5 million people. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. So we're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens. Again, this is not something that really impacts old school D&D. Now, do I think that Wizards of the Coast will strip mine old school D&D for these things? Absolutely. Somebody was saying they wanted to see Rob Turner wants to relive Pools of Radiance with an updated interface. Be careful what you wish for, because that game would be directed by her. And you saw what happened. You saw what happened to Veilguard. No, Wonderful Wizard of Games, I think that's a perfectly valid point of view. I think that's a perfectly valid tack to take. He said the tariff is near. I mean, now I'll be 100% honest. I haven't really gotten into much in the way of modern PC gaming in a while. The newest video game that I bought, that like I said, I'm going to spend my money on this. The newest one that I purchased was Fallout 4. And that game's a decade old. Maybe more? When did somebody look that up? When did Fallout 4 come out? I have fun just roaming across a wasteland with my companion, Curie forever, by the way. Blowing away mutants, looting them, taking a bunch of tin cans and baseball bats back to a village and building a high-rise apartment for my little villagers. I like that. That's fun. Do I remember a few years back when WotC licensed old Pathfinder adventures because the writers are out of it? I don't remember that, Damien, but I would not be shocked. Orbital Air, exactly. Can't we all just play RPGs? Now, let me tell you guys, there is something fun. There is something awesome. I gotta double check my my funds to see if I can afford this. But I've talked about this before. Wizardry, Proving Ground of the Mad Overlord, is available on Steam. And you might say, yeah, big deal, so what? I'm going to gush about this a little bit. This is what you do to capture the old school crowd. Gorgeous, new, fantastic graphics. Everything inside the game's logic is exactly as it was in 1979 when the game came out on the Apple II. In fact, the guts of the game are run on an Apple II emulator. What you see on the screen, the fancy interfaces, the 3D graphics, the mip mapping, the shading, all of that stuff is taking its direction from the emulated Apple II running inside of it. That is awesome. That is awesome. And I feel like that is Nick Valentine, 33K7. I got you. Hey, I know a lot of people that are like, nah, man, it's dog meat. It's always dog meat. Dog meat's pretty cool. I just like, yeah, I like who I like. That's just it, Finn. It's not a remake. It's the original Wizardry. You're running an Apple II emulator, and there is a layer of interpolation that make it look like a brand new game. I hope it's hugely successful and all the other Wizardry games follow suit to a point. Now, when I started getting into CRPGs heavily in the 16-bit era, see, there's like two distinct eras with me and CRPGs. Stuff on my Commodore 64, Temple of Apshai, Fantasy, Might and Magic, not Heroes of, but Might and Magic, Wizardry, the Bard's Tale series, Pool of Radiance. What else? What else did I play? Questron. All of those games. And then I didn't play any RPGs for the longest time, for probably, I don't know, almost 10, 12 years. More than that, probably 14 or 15. So when I came back into it, people were still talking about Wizardry, but their big thing were Wizardry 6 and 7. And those games and what you do in those games and what those games refer to and everything are completely divorced from Wizardry 1 through 5. Like, none of your characters come over. None of the story ties into Wizardry's kind of loose story from Wizardry 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do I think Fafhrd and Grey Mouser could beat up Conan? Beat him up physically, defeat him? Probably not. He would overcome them with strength. Win the day over him? Yeah, I think guile and cunning. I think he would. By Mitra, I cannot believe that they lied to me. Oh, they will rue the day. You know, when he has like a bag of lead coins that he thought were gold or something. Oh, no, I had an early morning too, Wheeling Dragon. They will never do anything with Ultima because of bad blood between them and Richard Garriott. I think if they moved to make something Ultima related now, Garriott would probably like rain hellfire on them legally if he could. Yeah, attacking Conan directly would end them, yeah. Yeah, that was the lone exception, Rob. Crescent Hawks. When I learned how to sector edit Crescent Hawks and change hex values and give everybody in my lance, you know, I went from, okay, here's your customized commando to here's your customized commando, Locust, and what was the training mech you could get if you were very lucky? I'm trying to remember what it was. Griffin, was it? No, it wasn't a Griffin. Anyway, yeah, when I learned how to hex edit and I went to Archer, Warhammer, Marauder, Battlemaster, then the game became a lot of fun. And I actually wanted to give the Caretans, or you were fighting Caretan or Merrick forces, I don't recall. But I wanted to give them the like equivalent mechs, but it would crash the game. Like if I said, oh, okay, instead of you coming after me with 2 Stingers and a Locust, how about you got a Warhammer, an Atlas, and an Archer, and I statted them up. I changed the stats of the various mechs in the game, but it would just cause it to crash. So yeah, I did play the hell out of that once I learned that I could sector edit it and had just oodles and oodles of fun. Just roaming around on the planet, blowing up hapless light mechs with my elite lance. Although if I got too damaged, because you're gonna get worn down. The Mechit lube garages that you could go to, the 4 or 5 locations on the surface of the planet, wouldn't be able to service your mech because they're like, we don't know how to service a Warhammer. So you'd have to go back in and edit, hex edit stuff. How do I feel about World of Darkness games? Okay, so I played Vampire the Masquerade a couple of times and had fun because I was with a group of people I liked and I knew the person who was DMing it. We had a good time. I must admit, in the early 2000s, I wanted to give Exalted a try. And I found a cheap copy of the rule book used and bought it. This is nominally $50, and that was 25 years ago, 24 years ago. There may be a role-playing game in the Exalted rulebook. I don't know. If there is, it's buried someplace in 600 pages of Naruto fanfic. I couldn't find one. Like, I just want to know how charms work. Galatia of the Eastern Wind cast her jade sword on the ocean of tears of eternity. I just want to know how fuck this game. So I just shelved it. Now, my buddy Kevin borrowed the book from me. And he actually built up a pretty good Exalted campaign, but we used Hero System instead. And it worked pretty well because we all knew Hero System from like the late 1980s. So that is my experience with World of Darkness games. I've looked at a couple of World of Darkness games. But that was my only play. Which of the evil races in D&D would get along best with a modern human society? It depends on what you mean by modern human society. That's interesting, Damien. I had heard of that, but modern human society where? Western human society? I mean, you know, third world human society? Hey, depending on where you are in the world, what, you know, how hedonistic of a place you're in. Modern now, they get introduced to everybody. Okay. So I feel like that your lawful evil beings would probably find a home in authoritarian societies. Goblins, kobolds, hobgoblins, and orcs would probably fit very well in very authoritarian, oligarchic societies where they could work as muscle for a single strong leader or a strong, brutal, might makes right authoritarian framework. There are a few countries like that. For more open, hedonistic societies, like you take the worst depredations here in the modern society, I think drow elves would probably find some sick, twisted fun. But in the overall, I think I think probably the ones that would just snap to and be like, okay, this fits us best. You'd probably go with the lawful evil humanoids and stick them in authoritarian societies. So again, orcs, hobgoblins, kobolds, goblins, and fit them with modern authoritarian societies. Dungeons of Dread is actually very good because it has introductory pieces from Lost Shik. about each dungeon, and it's complete. Do not buy S1 to 4 Realms of Horror, though. The maps in that are real good. The book lays flat, although you'd be getting it print on demand, and I'm not sure about that. But the print on demand soft covers, like modules and stuff, I find don't open and lay flat well. So you might do better off, and it's certainly more economical. It's certainly more economical. Oh, thank you, Damien. I will have to check that out. One thing what about Giants? I mean, they're fine, but they choke in the playoffs every year. That's just how it goes for them. No, I think Giants would be too weirded out. Because the evil Giants, the only well, maybe Fire Giants, again, putting them, I could see Fire Giants being like, yeah, we'll try this Russia place out. This seems to work well for us. Now, note, when we say monster, we don't necessarily mean bad. I could see dwarves just rolling up their sleeves and going to work in any industrial society. Just fitting right in. Halflings would hate it here. Is it cheating, Halsey, if I say men? So men. Yeah, you know, men. I don't think elves would care for it here. I don't think they'd fit in at all. Yeah. Yeah, I figured you'd do that, Halsey. I figured you would that would not pass. The true monster is never mad. Yeah, I guess that's how I feel. You know, I just feel like that the less fantastical and more mundane and boring creatures we're talking about, the better they'd fit in, and the evil ones would fit right in with authoritarian, repressive authoritarian regimes. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Dark Sun is it's all screwed up. I get it. Or alternately, dwarves settle in Wisconsin and suddenly, that they start commuting to work, and every steel mill from southern Wisconsin to eastern Pennsylvania is just outputting. Nobody's buying this. I know, they just showed up and started working. These foundries haven't been functional for a decade. I know. But that's just my take on it. Maybe you guys think differently. Tomorrow we are back. We are back playing some first edition AD&D, as I said. I hope you guys will all tune in for that. And want to stop down. Question? Jeff the Greatest. Do you have a question? Or are you just questioning? TPK Tuesday? Maybe, maybe not. Who else is going to be here for the game? You might ask. Maybe you're asking that. I'm reading your mind. So we have Doomsword Deathmaster. We have Kevin. We have Graph Paper Architect. Hopefully he is feeling better. We have Timothy Imholt. And we have Mr. D and Disability Thane Kyle himself. That's 5 great players. We might even be adding a 6th. No spoilers yet. Have I ever used a dryad against a party? I have had a dryad appear. The party didn't realize what she was, and nobody in the party was high enough charisma for her to try and charm and abduct. So it was just a meeting with a woman. They suspected she was some kind of supernatural being living out in the woods that they hadn't heard or seen approach, who just kind of stepped out from behind a tree. I was like, hello. But it wasn't against the party. They conversed with her, made sure she was not something horrible, and then they moved on. But I've never had a chance to use one against a party. But anyway, so yeah, we've got a great group that's going to be here tomorrow. 17 or better. 17 or better charisma males, which means your paladins are in danger. I'm in danger. All right, guys. So I am going to go ahead and let's see. Start a mini campaign, 3 players. Excellent. Excellent. My Monday night game has 10 people in it. Pray for me. I will go ahead and scoot on out of here, but thank you everyone for tuning in tonight and for your wonderful questions and for our great RPG news talk. Listen, we're going to be back tomorrow. Everything's going to be fine, but I am going to warn you, as you file out tonight, make straight for your cars. Don't stop by the topi area or the bushes, because you know what? That just might be an owl bear. Peace. Good night. Love you all.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle, way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the